Just happened to be walking through on another little chore, and I was noticing my onions that I just planted last week. These things are just going nuts. They've already put up stalks, must be 3 or 4 inches tall, so I am very pleased. I think, unlike some of the other onions that were just sort of iffy, they've already caught up. So these are the onions I planted from seed right there. These are the onions that I put bulbs in just last week. There's not a lick of difference. So between the Spanish yellow onions that I put in before and these other new ones, I expect we'll have a harvest of onions. Hello again, everyone. Some old man. I hope you enjoyed my tour of the onions and seeing how they're growing. Well, today we're going to do something a little bit different. I always show you my garden, what I'm doing out there, but today I'm going to talk about my ham radio antenna. What? I don't know if you've noticed on any of my walkthroughs, but if you look up, you'll see a wire across the sky. That's my ham radio antenna for my HF rig, that is. It is what they call an end-fed half-wave antenna. Now, if you recall from one of my early episodes, episode 3 or 4 or 5 or something, I talked about ham radio and the basics of how it works. A radio wave has a length for the point that it kind of oscillates just like a electrical signal. A radio signal is the same way. And depending on the frequency, the length of the ham radio wave depends on, how much antenna you need. A receiving antenna doesn't need to be as long as anything in particular, but if you're going to transmit effectively, your antenna needs to be pretty much either the same length as the radio frequency you're transmitting on, or some fraction of that length. Half the length, a quarter the length, an eighth the length, and so forth. Now you get the little handheld radios. Those things have these little stubby rubber ducks, they call them, antennas. Those are probably 1/8 wavelength antennas or less. And they'll work, but they're not really effective. On most of those, you can go ahead and put a larger antenna that'll give you better reception and make you a better transmitter. But for the big radios that hams like to use to talk to Europe or talk to the Orient or whatever, you need a really long antenna to be able to transmit effectively. And those radios will go with wavelengths up to 160 meters, call it 350 or 400 feet. Now, I don't plan to transmit on that wavelength. I go up to 80 meters, which is a little over 250 feet. But my lot isn't that large. It is 80 feet wide and 100 and something deep. And I can't even use the front half of it because I'm sure the neighborhood and the HOA isn't going to want to have me stringing wires across my front yard. So I had to come up with something to make it fit. One of the things that you can do with a wire antenna is it doesn't have to be a straight line. It can bend. And there are a number of variations you can do, but what I chose is to bend my antenna. Now, many hams use what they call a dipole antenna. It's where the wire from the radio comes up in the middle and it is connected to 2 pieces of wire going out in a T shape. And generally, each of those sections of the T is a quarter wavelength. And for me, that would be a 60-foot on either side. That's not really practical. I could do it. Put the middle of it in the corner of my lot and then have one line going along the back fence and another line going along the side. But even then, it's kind of pushing it. I decided to do something even a little different. Use something they call an end fed instead of a center fed. End fed half wave antenna. So what I've got is the antenna is hooked up at one corner of my house, the end with the feed. So I've got a cable going up to that front end, and then it's strung across to a big tree, and then strung across and back to the house. We'll go outside in a few seconds and show you exactly what I mean. I hope you enjoy this film, and stick around for afterwards, because I will be walking through the garden. It's some old man. Let's go see the radio. We'll zoom in here just a little bit, and you can see the wire hanging from the eave of the roof. Swings along over to the fence, and on the fence there's a pulley. Actually, there's two pulleys, but one of them actually redirects the wire to go up let's see if you can still see it. Let's go over where I can see where it goes to. Up to the tree. There it is. See the pulley there. Again, it's two pulleys. It's the white pulley that redirects the wire, and the white pulley is held by a little piece of rope that goes over the red pulley and down to where I can get it out the fence. You can see the black cord there. But the wire continues on over here to the eave on the far corner of the house. That is my half wave end fed antenna. And from that box at the end, that's the loading coil, or at least part of it. That's the actual stuff that and you can see that there's a cable hanging down from that. Eventually I want to tuck that in behind the trim there, but right now it's just hanging loose. Comes down here and through a pass-through in the window and into where the radio is. And you can see there's another cable coming up. That one we've tucked away. It goes up here to the 2-meter antenna. Whole different kind of thing for the longer wave or the shorter wave radio. That's for the handheld. But the wire going up here to the tree and back to the house, that is for my HF, my long range radio. Now truthfully, I don't get that great a reception right now. I plan to go ahead and redo the point where it's connected at the fence. I'm going to put an extension to raise it up at least another 10 feet or so. Hopefully that'll improve my reception and transmission ability. Right now I'm really hard of hearing. I have actually managed to get a few transmissions, but I have not been able to get the signals that I get out are very weak. So I'm sure that having the antenna up higher will help. Now you'll notice that there are branches all over the ground. I was out here yesterday or the day before with my pole saw, and I was noticing that the bushes over in the neighbor's yard were just all over the fence, way more than I expect, and the wire was actually being interfered with. And although it isn't going to hurt the wire, it may ground out the signal a little bit, and it certainly aren't going to do the plants any good. So what I did is I came up here and I just started cutting everything that was in the way. Now I probably need to cut some more as I go, especially if I go ahead and put that pole to raise the corner of the wire up another 10 or 15 feet. But I'll be able to judge that better. Yeah, you can see I've cut a number of pieces there, but if I go ahead and raise that up another 10 or 15 feet, I can see that I'm going to have to cut more. But that's okay. This weekend I'm going to be out here with the saw and the clippers and bagging this stuff up just like I've done elsewhere, because there's a lot of it right now. And I had to clear that line because actually some of my trees were getting to where they were interfering with the line. I didn't want them hanging over the wire or sitting on the wire, and I think it was doing both. I'll probably have to trim some more if I can even reach them, because they're up there pretty high. But that's a project to do over the next month or so. Unfortunately, the extension pole that I really was looking at, it's an antenna wire telescoping, runs about $100 or more, and I think that'll be better than just going ahead and slapping together some 2x4s and stuff trying to make something that'll work. But I want to have something a little bit more reliable that I can easily take down. I'll just bolt it to the side of the fence here when I get to that point, and we'll see how it works. But that's what I'm doing right now with my radio equipment. Let's go inside real quick and take a look at what exactly is happening on the inside of that pass-through, because there's some interesting things going on. Well, we're inside now, which is a good thing because it's in the high 80s out there, and I'm sweating a little bit. Inside, it's air conditioned, and I feel much better. I'll feel much better even yet once I've cooled off a little bit. Now you can see that I've got 6 coax pass-throughs. They're RG 49 or whatever the heck, SO49s that I have to connect to. And this one here with the red on the end is the one that is on the outside coming from the wire antenna up at the top. And as you can see, it snakes down, it goes behind the computer and actually goes through some of this other stuff. Like this here is a SWR meter, and when I get an antenna analyzer and those other kinds of things, I'll probably put it in circuit right now, and it all connects down to the radio, of course. Where is the radio? Oh, it's down below. Okay, looking through the phone, I can't really tell. See, power supply, there's the radio, and in the back is where it connects. And we'll shift around really quick so you can take a look at the mess I've got back here. The one with the red cable is the one that comes from, or yeah, there it is, yellow, and then it connects into the back of the radio. Now you'll notice that there's a copper wire coming out of there too. That is the ground. The ground, I've got it going over to a ground plate that I mounted permanently on the table. Well, permanently, and to get it off I'd have to unbolt it. You can see that there's a couple of more wires going off of the ground plate, and there's plenty of room to add additional things if I end up going ahead and getting additional radios. And what those 2 wires do, one of them actually connects down to, well, one of them actually goes out back through the pass-through, and on the outside it goes down in a circuitous route down to the ground, and I've got a ground rod in there, an 8-foot ground rod driven into the ground, so it is definitely grounded. The other one, you can see, just goes down. That is actually tied into the house wiring, and it's ground wire. So it's actually has a common ground with the rest of the house, which is probably just one of those things. It's not a bad idea. It's strictly speaking, it doesn't need it, but the fact that everything is grounded together is probably a good safety thing. Now you can see I've got wires everywhere because I got computers everywhere. I got that computer not even plugged in right now. And then of course all my work computers. See if I can zoom back out. There you go. So you can see I've got my work computers. Some of them are turned on, some of them aren't. And let's go outside and take a look at the ground wire. I actually got two of them out there, two grounding rods. One at the big antenna and one just below the window. We'll look at those real quick. Okay, we're at the outside of the pass-through again. You can see the ground wire coming out there. And I actually have that concealed behind the trim. And it's under the trim. And then right down there at the bottom, you can see it sneaking down into the ground. And right in here, somewhere, is my ground rod. I covered it up pretty much because it doesn't need to be exposed. And we don't need to be tripping over it. So it's kind of out of the way. About a foot from the wall. Now we'll go ahead and walk over here to where the other ground rod, again, like the cable coming down, I don't know if you can see that very well because the light is just terrible looking at it like this. Like the antenna cable coming down, the ground rod or ground wire is not concealed yet. I've got to do some work on it to get it rearranged, but it is coming down. I concealed it a little bit right at the bottom. If you look right in there next to the gutter, you can see it coming down. And again, it goes right in there under the ground, and I drove the ground rod in right there. Matter of fact, you can see that little circle, I think. No, that's a weed or debris, but it's right in there where the ground is disturbed. So I've got two ground rods. Everything is grounded. This one is not tied into the house, except in the fact that if short goes through the cable, it'll be picked up by the stuff inside. So I'm not too worried about it. Eventually I'd like to go ahead and put some additional protection, but I think it's almost going overboard because we've got a lightning arrestor up in this as part of that box up there, and we've got some pretty good grounding inside. Putting additional stuff is just an additional paranoia, which, you know, I'm a little bit could be a little bit accused of, just because of the fact that I tend to be a little bit of a prepper, and that's one thing I think I can prepare for. I just don't have the budget for it right this minute, but we'll get there eventually. What else have I been doing today? Take a peek up here. You see my pawpaw tree, and right next to it I got a brand new Goji Berry plant, and just a little further down, probably just out of sight around the corner, a second new Goji Berry. Two new Goji Berries. Now I had originally thought I was going to take one of those and replace this Goji Berry over here, because it was looking really sad. It had hardly any leaves, and holy smokes, it just kind of blew up, and it's going crazy with putting out new leaves now here the last week. So I decided I don't need to replace this. So I have two over there, two over here, and two. I've got 6 Goji berries, and I expect that based on what the first 4 are doing, they'll all be healthy and grow, and in a few years we should start seeing Goji berries, which is one of those nice healthy things to eat. Let's take a look at some of the other berries that we have. Of course, on Goji Berry. You can see right up here a cluster of buds. I'm not sure if those are flowered or after the flower. I think they're after the flower because they look like little bitty berries. And they're all over the bush. And when these grow up, they'll be little berries about 1/4 inch in size. I've gotten them before. And this one, I don't see any on it. Doesn't mean there aren't any. And there are some on this plant here, not as thick as on the first one, but I don't know if these all produce at the same time. I don't remember that they did before. This one has a bunch of berries on this elderberry plant. And before the things started growing this season, back in mid-March or whatever, I trimmed all of these goji berries off below the level of the fence. And it looks like this one in particular is at least 6 foot taller than it was. So you can see I don't have to worry too much about these things growing. Okay, on this side, here's my kiwi plants. Male plant, male plant. Where's my female plant? This one back here in the side is a female plant. And let's see if we can see anything that looks like fruit on here. I do not see it, but I have not seen fruit yet. So I'm not sure what it looks like. If it's, so we'll have to keep our eyes on this. I have been, but I really don't know what to look for. So it may be that it just isn't growing yet. I have the second female plant that I planted. I don't expect to see fruit from this for at least a couple years because it's just a little baby yet. All the rest of this stuff is Comfrey. The Comfrey has flowers all over it, but it does not seed. It's of the variety that Baching 14. The only way to get it to propagate is to split the roots. And periodically, that's one thing I can do is I'll go ahead and dig up a root crown and cut it in half, replant one of them if I want to keep Comfrey going, and then I just cut the other one up into little pieces. If it's as big as the end of your pinky, it'll be enough to get a new plant started. It's really amazing how that works. Yeah, I'm really pleased that the female Comfrey is finally taking off. And as you can see, I've got my cable from the roof kind of coiled up there and attached to the side of my compost bin because it had been just sprawled out all over the ground and I didn't like that, so I finally cleaned it up here this last weekend. So many projects back here, and I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off to get to work on one, and then I got to work on something else. But when I was putting in those new goji berries this afternoon, one of the other things I did is I ran some new water line to them so that they would be watered. And then after I planted them, I also came out here with a watering can and gave them a good hearty watering in so that they get good and soaked. So, and I also tested the drip line to make sure that they were getting water from them, so it'll be good. Well, that's not all I filmed, but I didn't want to have this particular video go too long. I've got quite a few minutes of additional video. Probably go ahead and see if I can't create another one maybe tomorrow, a little later, since I don't want it to go to waste. I want to show you how I finished the rabbit netting along the bottom of the fence. I wanted to show you what else do I have. I already showed you the onions. I've got a little bit more of my walkthrough that I do, but that's not that big of a deal. We'll go ahead and catch that another time. So this is wanted to show you the antenna today and a few other things that are going on right now. So so you can see what I got going. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and leave me a comment, hit the like button, and definitely subscribe if you're not already. Tell your friends. And we'll go ahead and continue doing this another day. This is Some Old Man signing off.